Today I will read you a scary story of my subscriber. He would have been better off not falling into that trap. I've always been a bit of a loner, not in the brooding, leather jacket kind of way, but more in the spends too much time online sort of way. Ever since high school, computers felt like the one thing that made sense to me. You give them input, they give you output. No messy emotions. No guesswork. That's probably why I ended up in cybersecurity. It's not as glamorous as movies make it out to be. No high-stakes hacking battles or Matrix-style screens. But it has its moments. Mostly, I help small companies patch vulnerabilities they didn't know they had or stop some kid in his mom's basement from breaching a weak firewall. But sometimes you trip over something you wish you hadn't. It started on an unremarkable Thursday night. Rain lashed against the windows of my tiny apartment. Just me. My computer screens glowing in the dark, and an energy drink sweating beside my keyboard. I was knee-deep in a rabbit hole on the deep web, poking around hidden forums and encrypted message boards, just out of curiosity. I wasn't doing anything illegal, just exploring. Seeing how deep the cracks in the internet really went. The deep web's weird. It's not all hitmen and drug markets like people think. But there are dark corners. I'd been on a private IRC channel, following some threads about data breaches, when a user with the handle Nocturne88 posted a link. No description, just, for the ones who really want to see the truth. Now, I know better than to click blind links. That's cybersecurity 101. But there was something about it, like it was left just for me. Against my better judgment, I copied it into my Tor browser, isolated from my main network, and loaded it. The page was odd. No graphics, just stark white text on a black screen. At the top it read, "The Theater of Shadows." Underneath, a list of video files. No thumbnails, no descriptions, just names like falling_man, sleeping_doorway, cellar_steps. Most of them had timestamps, recent ones, minutes old. I scrolled through, feeling that jittery cocktail of curiosity and unease. This had to be some kind of ARG or horror art project. I clicked on sleeping_doorway. The video was grainy, black and white, shot from a high corner of a room. A man slept on a couch, soft breathing filling the mic. For a minute, nothing happened. Then, from the edge of the screen, a dark figure appeared, moving slowly, silently, until it stood right over the sleeping man. I expected a jump scare, something cheap, but the figure just watched. Watched for so long it made my skin crawl. I closed the video. My stomach was tight. It was too real, no shaky cam, no fake blood. Still, I told myself it was staged. It had to be. But then I saw it. A new file had appeared at the top of the list. Watching_you. The timestamp? 2 minutes ago. I hesitated, then clicked. The video started with a soft static hum. And there I was, on the screen, sitting at my desk. From a high angle, like from a corner of the room somewhere above me. I froze, heart thudding in my ears. On the screen, I watched myself pause, glance around the room, just like I was doing now. I looked up. Nothing. Bare ceiling. No camera. I felt the cold, creeping tendrils of panic as I realized. This wasn't some hack. Someone was watching me, and they were close. Very close. My chest tightened, breath shallow as I sat there, paralyzed, staring at my own terrified face on the screen. In the video, I twisted in my chair, looking around, exactly as I was doing now, like I was trapped in some horrific feedback loop. I slammed the laptop shut. The screen blinked into darkness, but it didn't stop the prickling sensation crawling up my spine. The feeling that someone was still there, watching. I shot up from my chair, my heartbeat a brutal drum in my ears. Okay. I whispered to myself, trying to sound rational, trying to be rational. I glanced around my apartment. It wasn't big. 1 bedroom, small kitchen, my cluttered living space. But there were plenty of spots someone could hide a tiny camera. My mind raced. Could this be some kind of augmented reality prank? Some insane, elaborate scam? But no, this wasn't some random feed. It was live. It was me moments ago, sitting right where I was now. I checked the door first. Deadbolt. Chain still on. The windows were locked tight, but the paranoia whispered that wouldn't stop them. Not if they were already inside. The air felt thick, suffocating. I yanked open kitchen cabinets, closet doors, even crawled halfway under my bed, my phone flashlight jittering in my trembling hand. Nothing. No hidden cams. No lurking figure. But the dread didn't ease. I needed to know how they got in, how they saw me. I reopened the laptop, hands slick with sweat, and checked my network traffic. Ran packet sniffers. Looked for any backdoors into my system. Nothing. Except there was an outbound connection I didn't recognize. Encrypted, masking its location. I followed the trace as best I could, my fingers flying over the keyboard. It looped through proxies, bounced across continents, but I was good at this. I dug deeper, and then, like a taunt, a message appeared on my screen. "You shouldn't look for me." My stomach dropped. I didn't type anything. This wasn't some chat window. This was my machine. They were inside it, puppeteering my system like it was theirs. Another message appeared. "But since you're curious..." The screen flickered. A new video loaded. No file name this time. It showed my front door. The live feed. Someone was standing outside. Motionless. A dark silhouette, just out of the reach of the hall light. Their features swallowed by shadow. They didn't knock. Didn't move. Just stood there. I swallowed hard, backing away from the desk, keeping my eyes on the screen. Then, as if they could feel me watching, the figure raised a hand. Slowly, fingers curling into a knock. I almost screamed. The knock echoed through my apartment, violent and hollow. They knew I was here. They wanted me to know. The knock reverberated through my apartment, loud and heavy, like it was aimed straight at my chest. Again. I stood there, barely breathing, my eyes flicking between the laptop screen and the front door. The figure didn't move. No shifting weight. No nervous glances. Just an unnatural stillness. I grabbed the closest thing I could find, a rusted metal flashlight from the shelf, and inched toward the peephole. Every instinct screamed, "Don't look," but curiosity gnawed louder. I peered through. Nothing. The hallway was empty, but the live feed on my laptop still showed him. Right there, his head tilted slightly toward the door, as if waiting. I staggered back. This had to be a trick, a looped video feed. But the timestamp ticked forward. This was live. I yanked my phone from my pocket and dialed 911. Heart hammering so hard it felt like my ribs might crack. 3 rings. Then static. No operator. No automated voice. Just low, crackling static. "Hello," I barked into the phone. "Is anyone there? I need..." A voice cut through the noise. Not the calm professionalism of a dispatcher. It was distorted, warped like it was underwater. But I caught the words. "They're already inside." I dropped the phone. It hit the hardwood with a crack, the screen spiderwebbing. Couldn't breathe. I scanned the room again. The dark corners suddenly deeper. Every shadow stretching toward me. The laptop screen flickered. A new video loaded automatically. This time it was inside my apartment. A wide shot of my living room right now. Except there was someone else in the frame. A tall, thin figure, standing in the far corner, where the shadows bled thickest. I spun toward it, nothing. Just empty space. But in the video, the figure was still there, unmoving, as though it existed in the feed but not in the room. Then it stepped forward. On the screen, closer to where I was standing. I backed away, but the figure in the video kept advancing, its head tilting slowly, as if studying me. But there was nothing there. I could feel it, though, an oppressive weight in the air, like a presence brushing against the edges of my mind. The laptop speakers hissed. Then the distorted voice returned. "Stop looking." I slammed the laptop shut again, but the damage was done. This wasn't about hacking. This was something else. Something that saw me long before I saw it. And now it wanted me to know. I stood in the heavy silence, my heartbeat throbbing in my ears, the closed laptop like a landmine on my desk. I didn't dare touch it again. But the questions wouldn't stop. How was it still showing me? Live? There were no cameras. I checked. And that figure, the one in the corner, was it still here? Was it ever really here? I grabbed my jacket and keys, adrenaline pushing me toward the door. I didn't care if that thing or person was still out there. I just needed to get away. I slid the chain off, undid the deadbolt, and flung the door open. Empty hallway. I hesitated for only a second before stepping out, locking the door behind me. My footsteps echoed in the stairwell as I took the stairs 2 at a time, my mind racing with a dozen terrible scenarios. When I finally hit the street, the cold air slapped me awake. It was late, just past midnight, and the neighborhood was dead quiet. A thin mist curled around the streetlights, diffusing the glow into hazy halos. I walked fast, shoving my hands deep into my pockets, checking over my shoulder every few steps. No one. After a few blocks, I ducked into a 24-hour diner. Fluorescent lights, cheap coffee, the kind of place that felt too normal for anything terrible to happen in. I slid into a booth near the window, ordered black coffee I didn't want, and pulled out my phone. It was still glitching, but the signal was back. I started Googling. I didn't even know what to type. Deep web surveillance? Phantom hackers? Most of what I found was conspiracy garbage. Urban legends. Stories about haunted sites or cursed code that could see through your screen. But then something caught my eye. A post buried deep in an old cybersecurity forum. 5 years old, almost forgotten. The title was simple. If you find the theater of shadows, leave. Do not watch. My throat went dry. I clicked in. The user talked about a hidden site on the deep web that trafficked in unfiltered realities. Whatever the hell that meant. They said the videos weren't just staged horror, they were windows. That some of the footage wasn't filmed but pulled from fractures in observation. One comment stuck with me. If you watch too long, it sees you back. I reread that line over and over, stomach hollowing. That's what I did. I watched. I followed the thread when I should have walked away. I was still scrolling when the server dropped my check on the table. I barely noticed until I saw it. Written on the receipt, right below the total in jagged, slanted handwriting. You're not alone. I snapped my head up, scanning the diner. The server who brought it was gone. Just 2 old men at the counter and a teenager scrolling on his phone. My reflection in the window wavered under the fluorescent lights. But there was something wrong with it. The me in the glass wasn't sitting perfectly still. His head tilted, just slightly, as though he was watching me. Waiting. I stared at the reflection, my mind scrambling for a rational explanation. But the longer I looked, the more certain I became. It was watching me. Not mirroring. Watching. The me in the glass sat perfectly still, eyes locked forward, head cocked at that same unnatural angle. A cold shiver crawled up my spine. I forced myself to move, lifted my hand and waved it in front of my face. The reflection didn't follow. It just smiled. A thin, cold stretch of lips that wasn't mine. The air in the diner thickened, the low hum of conversations fading into a dull, distant static. My throat felt dry, my heartbeat roaring in my ears. I shoved back from the booth, my chair scraping loudly across the floor. The few people in the diner didn't even flinch, like they hadn't noticed anything wrong. I staggered out the door, the bell chiming hollowly behind me. Outside, the mist had thickened, curling low around my feet as I half-jogged down the empty sidewalk. Every reflective surface I passed, windows, puddles, even the gleam of a car's side mirror, felt like it was pulling at me. Like if I dared to look, that thing would be there again. Watching, smiling. I didn't look. I made it back to my apartment way too fast. I barely remembered the walk, just flashes of wet pavement and dark alleyways. But the moment I stood at my door, keys trembling in my hand, I hesitated. Was it worse inside? But the streets felt hollow, like I was exposed out here, raw and vulnerable. I unlocked the door and slipped inside, locking everything behind me. The apartment felt wrong. The kind of wrong you can't describe, just a pressure in the air like the walls were too close, too heavy. I grabbed a roll of electrical tape from the kitchen drawer and started covering anything reflective, mirrors, TV screens, the glossy black microwave door. Anything that could bounce my image back. Finally, I sat at my desk, the covered laptop still sitting there like a dormant threat. I peeled the tape off the lid and opened it. The screen flickered to life. No login screen, no desktop, just a single black window, and a line of white text. It's closer now. Before I could react, a new video file began to load. No click, no command from me. The title? Breath underscore. The feed stuttered, then opened. It was my apartment, but this time it was shot from behind me. I could see the back of my own head, the flickering glow of the laptop screen in front of me. And in the video, something moved in the shadows, just over my shoulder, closer than I thought possible. I didn't dare turn around, because I could feel it now, warm breath against my neck, and the softest sound, breathing, not mine. The breathing was slow, shallow, not mine. I sat frozen, staring at the screen, where the video feed showed the back of my head. My own shoulders tensed just like I was now, but the real horror was in the shadows behind me. In the grainy footage, something leaned in, a vague, towering shape, its face hidden in darkness. Closer, closer. I could feel the heat of it against my neck. Every instinct screamed turn around, but another part of me, the primal, ancient part, knew better. Whatever this was, it wanted me to look, needed it. I slammed the laptop shut, breaking the feed, and threw myself sideways off the chair, landing hard on my shoulder. My head whipped around. Nothing. Empty room. But the air felt thick, like something massive had just been there and slipped away the moment I moved. I staggered upright, chest heaving. This was no longer about code. No hacking. No malware. This was something else. Something older. The warning from that old forum post echoed in my head. If you watch too long, it sees you back. And now it was here. I needed help, but calling anyone was pointless. I didn't want to drag anyone else into this. And besides, who the hell would believe me? I grabbed my phone anyway, half instinct, half desperation, and opened the browser. I searched deeper, obscure forums, old threads, the kind of places cybersecurity experts and digital ghost hunters lurked. Finally, I found something. A post titled, "They don't just watch, they wait." It was old, almost a decade, but it talked about the theater of shadows. Not as some simple dark website, but as a kind of trap. A digital snare that fed off curiosity. The poster described a pattern. It always started with someone finding the site by accident, like I had. Then the videos would start showing them. And then, the more you notice it, the more real it becomes. Don't engage. Don't react. But if it's already in your space, you need to break the chain of observation. Break the chain. I sat there, trying to process that, when my apartment lights flickered, just for a second. Then my laptop chimed. A new message flashed on the screen. "You've been seen." And before I could close it, another live feed started playing. It wasn't my apartment this time. It was outside. The camera showed the front of my building silent, the streetlights throwing long, twisted shadows. And there, in the grainy footage, a figure stood under the street lamp, looking straight up at my window, even though I was on the 4th floor, even though the figure's face was wrong, blurry, shifting like static across a bad signal. I slammed the laptop shut again, but it was too late. I heard it, the floorboards creaking, inside my apartment, coming closer, slow, deliberate steps, like whoever or whatever it was. It wasn't in the street anymore. It was here. The creaking grew louder, floorboards groaning under deliberate weight. I didn't move, didn't breathe. The sound was coming from the hallway, inside my apartment. But when I strained to listen harder, the creaks stopped. Dead silence. I swallowed hard and reached for the metal flashlight I dropped earlier, gripping it so tightly my knuckles turned white. You need to break the chain of observation. The words from the forum echoed in my head. But what the hell did that even mean? I wasn't watching anymore. I closed the laptop. I'd done everything to stop looking. But then it hit me. It wasn't about me watching. It was about being watched. I spun toward the nearest covered mirror, the tape I'd slapped across it barely holding. My reflection was still trapped behind it, still watching from the other side. The chain wasn't broken. I tore the tape away and stared into the glass. First, it was just me. Then, behind my shoulder, something flickered into view. Like it had been there the whole time but only now allowed itself to be seen. A towering figure, face obscured by shadows, limbs too long, fingers spidering out into claw-like points. It didn't move, but I knew if I so much as blinked, it would. "Break the chain," I whispered. I raised the flashlight and smashed the mirror. Glass exploded outward, shards raining down around me, some slicing across my arms, but I barely felt it. The air shifted, like something heavy had been pulled out of the room. For a moment, everything was still. No breathing behind me, no creaking floorboards, just gone. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. I patched myself up as best I could, basic first aid, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. The air felt clearer now, lighter, but I knew this thing wasn't finished. It had followed me through the screen, the cameras, the reflections, but destroying the mirror was only a temporary fix. I opened my laptop again, half expecting it to be fried or worse, but it powered up. The Theater of Shadows site was still open, but now there was only one video left. Exit.mp4. No timestamp, no location, just that word. I hovered the cursor over it. Everything in me said don't, but if there was any chance of stopping this, of ending it, I had to see. I clicked. The video flickered to life. It was my apartment, but empty. The camera panned slowly, eerily smooth, moving through the rooms. Then it turned toward the front door. There, carved deep into the wood, was a symbol. A jagged circle with a slash through it. Beneath it, words scratched into the paint. End the loop. The feed cut out. No instructions. No more messages. Just that. End the loop. I sat there, mind racing. The loop wasn't about me watching the videos, it was about the cycle. Curiosity. Observation. The more you looked, the more it saw. The more it could reach you. I had opened the door the moment I clicked that first video. Now, I had to slam it shut. I went back into the code, scrubbing through the traces, back through the proxy chains. But something was different now. The deeper I dug, the more the lines of code twisted into something unrecognizable, almost organic, like veins instead of data streams. But there at the core was the Theater of Shadows origin point. I uploaded a custom virus I'd been working on for months, a nuclear option. It wasn't elegant, but it was destructive. The moment I launched it, my laptop screen fractured, black lines spidering across the display like broken glass, before going dark completely. The lights in my apartment flickered once, twice, then steadied, and the air felt empty. For the first time in hours, I didn't feel watched. It was gone. Weeks passed. Life returned to a strange kind of normal. I changed apartments, dumped all my old gear, and refused to go anywhere near the deep web again. But sometimes when I catch my reflection in shop windows or dark screens, there's a flicker. Like something still lingers. Waiting. The chain may be broken. But what if someone else stumbles on that link? Curiosity's a dangerous thing. And I'm not sure it's really over. Not for good. After all, someone's always watching.